New tropical storm forms in the South Indian Ocean on tonight's Tropical Weather Bulletin. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for December 18th. So right now we have a new unnamed tropical storm in the South Indian Ocean, the one that we've been tracking for many days now, and the remnants of Mandous are still alive and not far from the Arabian Peninsula now and the Horn of Africa, but it will disappear from our screens very, very soon at this point. In the Atlantic, it's 165 days until the next hurricane season begins, and we're still picking up the pieces after this year's season. 14 named storms was the final total, as far as we know, but there's still around 14 days left for things to happen, but it shouldn't. In the Western Pacific, nothing active here, just for those who were curious. Really nothing to talk about in this basin right now. We're just really showing it just for those who might be wondering. So let's take a look at where the action is. It's in the Indian Ocean north and south, but let's begin in the southern side. 98S, that's the Invest, a tropical storm now, and likely to intensify further as it sinks southwards slowly in the South Indian Ocean and shouldn't affect land. A 30% chance to its west as well, another system that could end up forming and becoming a significant tropical cyclone. Remnants of Mandous headed towards the Horn of Africa region, moving off towards the west, and it will run up against the front and die off very soon. And a 10% area of interest approaching Sri Lanka. That's also the one we've been tracking for quite some time, but at the moment no signs of life yet. Here's what the Atlantic looks like right now, and you can see that it's pretty desolate. Dry air bank in a large area of the Atlantic Ocean there, with some showers pushing through the Florida Peninsula and up towards the southeastern United States, but elsewhere very quiet. Eastern Pacific region, nothing of a tropical nature, but you've got this non-tropical low that's really pushing up a lot of moisture and precipitation to the western coast of Mexico and the northern part of Mexico, and there's quite a bit of rainfall going on in Southern California as well today from another low pressure system. So let's take a look at our main tropical cyclone. This is 98S, and I know the imagery is jiggling about a bit there as it tries to figure out where the center of the storm is on that floater, but you can see how it's been progressing over the course of the last, I think this is maybe a 6 or 12 hour period, something like that, and you can see its rotation's been getting gradually better. It's struggling on the eastern side, probably due to high wind shear, but in general it is starting to get better, and we're now confident enough to give this a tropical storm designation. Other suggestions might have been that it became a tropical storm earlier, but that's what we're up to right now. Here's the other system, that 10% in the Bay of Bengal, very close to the equator still, and really not getting much traction. We're not seeing very much rotation in the system at all. Convection is up and down, you can see there, just quite intermittent. And here's what the Western Pacific looks like in terms of the overall shot, and you can see the cold front on the north there really wrapping everything up and shearing everything away. Down in the deep tropics though, still one or two little areas of convection, a little wave there, but nothing of any note. Indian Ocean, wide shot here, you can still see the visible remnants of Mandous there on the left hand side in the Arabian Sea, little bits of convection going with it as well, and you get a more clear view of the other two systems here from a wider perspective. And this is the Australian region, quite a lot of thunderstorms in near the top end and Darwin, and also a little bit over the Cape York Peninsula down towards the rest of Queensland, but in general a pretty settled picture across most of the populated areas of Australia today. New Zealand looks like there's a front moving through there, and over Fiji it's a clear day today. Sea surface temperatures looking still decent in the Eastern Pacific for what it's worth, which really isn't very much. 28 degrees, pushing close to 30 in the Atlantic. The Western Caribbean still 28 degrees Celsius, still plenty of energy for moisture, if not a late tropical cyclone, but it really doesn't look like it, and no models are suggesting it. So that's good news, and we can wave goodbye to the Atlantic there. Let's take a look at the Eastern Hemisphere then. Across the Indian Ocean, that warm area really expanding in the southern hemisphere now, 28 degrees plus, especially where that invest is. Where 98S is right now, it's probably around 27 in that lighter shade of orange. And in the North Indian Ocean, there's still very warm conditions until you get close to Sri Lanka, where it drops off a little bit. And where Mandous is right now, it's only just around 26. Western Pacific still got that big dome of warm waters there in the Philippine Sea, 28 to 29 degrees. And in the Australian region towards the South Pacific, in the tropical zone, 30 degrees plus in some of those areas, very warm. And above average in the Coral Sea there, you can see here, stretching from Australia to Vanuatu pretty much. The La Nina effect is still very much there. It's above average in the Western Pacific and in parts of the Atlantic. In the Indian Ocean, it's generally around average, a little bit below average in some parts of the Southwest Indian Ocean, which is interesting. And this is the South Pacific oceanic heat content, which is really building around the Solomon Islands, and that will extend southwards gradually as we get towards peak season. Northern Hemisphere, really very little going on. The Western Pacific still has a few areas there west of the Marianas, so if there is a late season system, it could be around there. Quite little actually in the deep tropics towards the Philippines there, which is interesting to see. So let's check the short range GFS right now, and there is 98S on the right hand side, becoming a well established tropical cyclone, hurricane strength there, maybe even category 2, and it starts to swivel towards the west. Does that second system, that one that we marked to 30%, becoming a tropical storm there in that 5-day period, starts revving up around day 2 or 3 and becomes a tropical storm once it gets its circulation in order. Both of those steering out towards the open ocean, which is good news. Longer range, what happens to them next? Well, let's keep watching. That 30% system really just about holding on to tropical storm status. The other one, 98S, becoming a hurricane equivalent once or twice more, and a third system there in the Mozambique Channel making landfall near Beira on day 10 as a category 1 by the looks of things. So that's getting closer and closer to establishing itself, and its formation there is probably on day 7 or 8, so it is getting closer as we get closer in on the models. Keep watching that one. That's the serious stuff done with. Scan the barcode and take a look at the Force 13 merch store. We still have all kinds of options for you there, warm or cold, from our towels to our pillows and our hoodies, and our still waiting for Hone t-shirts also available for you tropical followers who are still desperately waiting for that Hone to form. So what happens to this triplet of systems? Well, the first one of course makes landfall inland over Mozambique, and then the other two still surviving, and both of them really go on for quite a while, and we're entering the new year with that 30% system moving through Reunion there on the 1st or the 2nd of January as a significant tropical cyclone. That's very far out though, and the future of both of these systems is quite murky, especially because they're sharing that space with each other, and things could go pretty wacky in terms of the forecasts and how they might change on a dime at times. Australian region is also poised to become busy into the new year as well. First, looking off the coast of Vanuatu there, a system forming. There's one off the west coast of Australia there on January the 1st, and a third system near Fiji entering the east of the international dateline around the 3rd of January, right at the very end of that 16-day period. So potentially 3 systems there as well, but they're all in the very long range, so I wouldn't bet anything on that just yet. But that could be 6 systems on that 16-day forecast. Well, you can have 6 weaker systems, or you can have one extremely powerful one, and December 18th, 1997 saw the latter, with Typhoon Paka peaking on this day with winds of around 185 miles per hour, one of the strongest, if not the strongest, December Western Pacific storms, or Northern Hemisphere storms for that matter, on record. There it is, well clear of Guam by that point, moving off towards the west-northwest, and didn't affect any other land areas before dying down as it tried to approach the Philippine Islands. What a storm though. Back to this year, and what little is left of it. We have reached 92 storms now, which is the annual average for every year. The next name in the Atlantic, if we get any more, is Owen. In the Eastern Pacific, an unlikely Seymour, and in the Central Pacific, an even more unlikely Hone. In the Western Pacific, we had Pakar last week. The next name now is Sanvu. And in the North Indian Ocean, I think we are still waiting for Mocha, unless I somehow missed that they renamed Mandous. We were having that conversation for a while. I don't think it happened. And in the Southern Hemisphere, next name in the Australian region is Darian, in the Southwest Indian Ocean, Cheniso, and in the South Pacific, it will be Harley. That's all from tonight's Tropical Weather Bulletin. We'll be back on Monday night.